Welcome back, everybody. This is Brian Kirk with Eat to My Own Beat, taking the road less traveled. We've got some news from 4 countries this week: Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, and Andorra. Sorry, four countries this week. We're going to start with Afghanistan, where the Taliban forces have been locked for months in a shadowy on-again, off-again battle with opposition fighters based in the Pashmir Valley, just a few hours north drive of Kabul. The province has been in a long anti-Taliban stronghold and remains the only significant pocket of resistance to the group since the fall of Kabul in August. The Washington Post secured a rare visit to the mountainous village where the fight is playing out, getting a glimpse of all the conflict the Taliban has gone to great lengths to conceal. Taliban officials flatly deny there's any violence in the area, even though thousands of the group's forces are visible across the valley. Everything here is fine, insisted Najrullah Malikizadeh, Taliban local information director in Pashmir. There's no fighting at all. Yet residents say assaults on the Taliban positions are regular occurrence, and dozens of people have been killed, with some civilian imprisoned in sweeping arrest. Those residents spoke on the condition of autonomy or used only one name to fear the reprisals. Clashes in the Pashmir are unlikely to pose any imminent threat to the Taliban's control over the province or the country, but the violent resistance here punctures key narratives propping up the movement's claim to legitimacy, that its rule has brought peace in Afghanistan and the fighters are capable of maintaining security. When the Taliban swept into Kabul in the summer of 2021, the Afghan military melted away. A small band of fighters in Pashmir held out for weeks. The Taliban claim they have taken full control of the valley in September, but spokesmen for the National Resistance Front say they never surrendered. Pashmir has a long history of resistance. It was the first province the Taliban fighters were never able to pacify after taking Kabul for the first time in 1996. The current anti-Taliban movement is led by Ahmad Massoud, the son of legendary resistance file Ahmad Shah Massoud, who was assassinated by the Al-Qaeda 2 days before September 11, 2001. 2001. Attacks on the United States and our former president Amrullah Saleh. Both men fled Afghanistan in late 2021, but they continue to direct operations from exile and are believed to be in command of thousands of fighters. Commander of approximately 1,000 fighters in Pashmir said the opposition is mostly armed with weapons shipped into Afghanistan across its borders from Uzbekistan and Tajikistan, but the munitions, including heavy weapons such as rocket launchers, are not enough. We are supported by several countries, but we now need more, he said, speaking on the condition of an autonomy for security reasons. Taliban leaders have sought to contain news from Pashmir by limiting access to the valley and issuing sweeping denials when confronting with reports of fighting. Of course, no one knows what is happening here, a 62-year-old shopkeeper named Gulzar told the Post on the recent visit to the valley. No one is allowed to come here. I don't even know how you got here, he said, cautiously watching pickup trucks and armored vehicles packed with Taliban fighters race up and down the hillside. The Post was officially granted access to the valley by Taliban leaders in Kabul and Pashmir, who said that they wanted media coverage of the security and stability of the area. After guided tours of the provincial capital, the Post team was given permission to travel unoccupied to the villages and to interview civilians. Those interactions offered a small window into the opaque struggle. Gulzar said the most recent wave of fighting spilled into the village. I was here at my shop when I heard the gunfire begin, he said, pointing to the orchards separating him from his family on the opposite cliffside. He immediately gathered his relatives and fled to the mountains. The clashes raged for over a day before anti-Taliban fighters ran out of the ammunition and surrendered. Gulzar said he watched dozens of men hand over their weapons before being taken away. 2 other men from the area confirmed this account. Malikizadeh, the Taliban information minister, said the fighting in Gulzar described was propaganda from outside forces and entirely false. He also denied restricting access to Pashmir, though he admitted to having recently blocked at least one international news outlet from visiting the valley because he thought the organization repeatedly published reports filled with lies. Under Taliban rule, the information that challenges the official line is increasingly difficult to verify. The country's media landscape has shrunk. Civil society faces constant intimidation, and human rights groups have either disbanded or operate under severe limitations. In past year, there are competing one-sided narratives. As the Taliban mainstream maintains that all is calm, spokesmen for resistance post nearly daily social media updates on their armed struggle. Residents have learned to be skeptical. There's a lot of propaganda on both sides in the war, says in past year, said farmer in Dara village, who had once been a member of the Afghan police force. The farmer says he often sees the bodies of dead Taliban fighters driven away into the back of trucks after battle, though he thinks the claims may be resistance to have killed 300 fighters in the past month are greatly exaggerated. It's a big province. People in one village don't necessarily know what's going on in the other every single day, said Ali Maziem Nazari, the head of all foreign relations for the resistance. Nazari says the group's information comes from commanders on the ground and informants inside the Taliban. The farmer believes that both sides are playing down civilian casualties. After a recent clash, he said he attended back-to-back funerals for 10 people killed in the crossfire in this village alone. Talking to friends and family elsewhere in the valley, he estimated that a total number could be 4 times that in a single day. Both the Taliban and National Resistance Front claim that no civilians have been killed in the recent fighting. Maybe 2 or 3 people have died, but it was probably from the cold or from falling off a mountain, said Malikzada, the Taliban's information minister. No one has been killed in the clashes. Clashes have increased since the end of the holy month of Ramadan in May. According to resistance residents interviewed by the Post, spring has always marked the beginning of Afghan's fighting season, as the weather in the north becomes milder and makes it easier for fighters to maneuver. The attacks have become more brutal as casualties have mounted on both sides, according to a tribal elder, Tawan Hidi, who spoke on the conditions that are identified only by his last name for fear of reprisals. He said they witnessed Taliban fighters carrying out summary executions after suffering losses in an assault, and has heard similar reports from other parts in the valley. Farah Maraz, who works in the bazaar not far from the Dara village, says Taliban fighters left the body of a dead opposition fighter on the side of the road in late May. They wanted everyone to see it, he said, and they wouldn't allow the men to move him for burial. They made the women take the body to the cemetery. Malik Zada conceded that thousands of Taliban fighters have been dispatched to the province, including some of the group's most elite units. Their forces have been seen everywhere in the valley, and sophisticated military equipment is positioned along otherwise idyllic orchards and rivers. Dad Muhammad Battar, a former Taliban Red Unit commander in Lagham, is now one of the group's top 10 force leaders in the area. He said that coordinated with similar units attached to the defense ministry and a Taliban quick reaction force stationed in a provincial capital. The situation is completely fine here, he said, seated beside a bouquet of plastic flowers and a dozen American-made M16 rifles. We go on patrol, but we haven't conducted many operations. We are mainly here to focus on criminal cases. Along the road just outside Battar's base, dozens of Taliban convoys could be seen weaving in and out of the valley, and as the sun began to fade. Further down, heavy armored vehicles, Humvees and MRAPs, formed checkpoints along the road, leading to and from villages that residents said has been the most round of fighting. It's important for foreigners to trust us, Malikzada said at the end of the guided tour. We don't lie to foreign media. The Islamic Republic of Afghanistan already proved to the people of Afghanistan everything we say is reality. Turning to the Post reporter, he said, "There's no reason for you not to trust us." So that's the story from Afghanistan this week. We go to Albania. Albania is in favor of renewing 1996 friendship treaty with Greece. The Albanian government is in favor of renewing a 1996 friendship and cooperation treaty with Greece for another 5 years, Greek diplomatic source said on Monday. The Friendship, Cooperation, Good Neighbors, and Security Agreement was signed between the two countries on March 21st, 1996, and had a 20-year initial duration. From the day of implementation, which ended in 2018, it was then renewed for a period of 5 years until 2023. With the treaty, Athens and Tirana proclaimed the inviolability of borders, respect for sovereignty, individual rights, minorities, and immigrants, which emphasized the European perspective of both countries. This development is in part of a steadily improving climate in relations between the two countries, which was proved during a visit by Foreign Minister Nikos Dedidias to Tirana in October of 2020, as well as to a recent meeting with Albanian Prime Minister Edi Rama in Tirana a few days ago, the same sources said. To sign and improving bilateral ties, the two countries reopened negotiations in May of 2018 to delineate maritime borders in the Ionian Sea and resolve other bilateral issues, and in October 2020, they announced they had agreed to take a dispute over their sea borders in the Ionian Sea to the International Court of Justice. Greece and Albania has signed a maritime border deal in 2009, but it was challenged by Albania's constitutional court, which nullified the agreement almost a year later. So that's stories from Albania for this week. Let's go to Algeria. Algeria suspends cooperation with Spain over Western Sahara. Algeria is immediately suspending a 2 decades-old friendship treaty with Spain after Madrid reversed decades of neutrality in the Western Sahara dispute. It was the latest blow to increasingly fragile relations between Algiers and Madrid, which depends on Algeria for most of its natural gas supply. Algeria has decided to immediately suspend the Treaty of Friendship and Good Neighbor Lines and Cooperation signed with Madrid in 2002, the President's office said in a statement on Wednesday. Spain's government said it regretted Algeria's decision and reaffirmed its commitment to a friendship treaty. The Spanish government regards Algeria as a friendly neighbor country and restates that its complete readiness to keep and develop a special cooperation relationship between our two countries to the benefit of both peoples, a Spanish foreign minister stated. The Algerian statement and Spain was abusing its role for administrating power in the Western Sahara until the United Nations sorts out the decades-old situation over the status of the vast mineral-rich territory. It is therefore contributing directly to the degradation of the situation in the Western Sahara and the region, the President's office said. Wednesday's move reflects Spain's complex challenge of balancing relations with arch-rivals Morocco and Algeria, which in August last year broke off diplomatic ties with Rabat over hostile acts. Morocco controls 80% of the Western Sahara. The rest is held by Algerian-backed Polisario movement, which fought a 15-year war with Morocco after Spanish troops withdrew in 1975 and demands referendum on its independence. Morocco has offered limited autonomy, but insists its phosphate and fisheries-rich territory must remain under its sovereignty. Spain officially endorsed the position in March to help resolve a year-long dispute after admitted that Polisario's leader Ibrahim al-Ghali to be treated for COVID-19. Algeria is a key gas supplier to Spain and is expected to review prices for any new gas contract with Spanish firms, a source with the matter told Reuters news agency. The current gas contract with Spain is long-term, with prices well under the current market values, said the source, who asked not to be identified. Appearing in Parliament earlier on Wednesday and asked by the opposition to address the simmering diplomatic crisis in Algeria and potentially higher gas prices, Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez abstained from comment, only reiterating the change of stance on the Western Sahara was a serious and realistic step. Spain's foreign minister said on Wednesday, "Nothing indicated that Algeria could take measures affecting its own gas supply to Spain. The Algerian government is a reliable partner and has given Spain guarantees at the highest level regarding its gas supply." Foreign Minister Jose Manuel Albrejaz told reporters when it asked if Algeria could now adopt measures against Spain involving gas and migration issues. That news was from Al Jazeera about Algeria. Previously, one was from ethkathimerini.com. And before that was the Washington Post story about Afghanistan. And now we're going to finish up with a story about Andorra. It's Andorra versus Liechtenstein predictions, preview team news, and more of the UEFA League. With both teams looking to pick up their first wins in Group D1 of the UEFA Nations League, Andorra and Liechtenstein square off at the Stade National on Friday. The visitors head into a weekend run of 20 consecutive games without a win and will be desperate to end this dry spell. Andorra they were denied their first win in the Nations League as they were held to a goalless draw by Moldova on Monday. This followed a humbling 3-0 defeat away to Latvia when the sides squared off in last Friday's group opener. Andorra heads into the weekend unbeaten in each of their last 3 home games, claiming 2 wins and 1 draw since a 4-1 loss to Poland in November 2021. Elsewhere, Liechtenstein were left empty-handed once again as they fell to a 1-0 defeat against Latvia last time out. They have now lost 8 consecutive games across all competitions and are winless in each of their last 20 outings. So that was a story about Andorra, and that comes from sportskita.com. So that wraps up the news of the week from Afghanistan, Albania, Algeria, and Andorra. So until next time, keep eating at your own beat, take the road less traveled, and have a great day.